There's a lot on my mind today, but I think the biggest thing is it hit me really hard how much time I've spent living in the prison of my own anxiety. And this can range from relatively mundane things like, oh, am I gonna get a ticket for that red light that I was kind of cutting it close on, or just stupid shit like that that really is not gonna matter if I zoom out at all, to relatively extreme, terrible things like everybody that I love dying in a car accident, or like being falsely accused of horrific crimes that I would never do, or insert the terrifying thing there. And while those fears come from a much more valid place in terms of they're actually consequential, whereas like a lot of the day-to-day minutia just really doesn't matter, it still is not helpful at all. And being anxious doesn't do anything to actually address the fear itself. It just builds the fear up. And that's stupid. And so in thinking about that today, I've actually been much better about this lately, of just recognizing what I'm doing, taking a deep breath, and resetting with action. Rather than, like, there was a time in my life where there's a lot going on. Specifically, I'm thinking of the year of COVID, where I was going through some personal health challenges, and I'd gone from an incredibly social environment of working as a personal trainer 6 days a week, riding my motorcycle to work every day, to being very, very alone and very uncertain about what the future would hold. And I remember a time when my family went driving somewhere without me. It was my parents and my siblings, and I was home. And I just remember, like, pacing around the kitchen for like 7 hours. And so when I say anxiety loops like this, it was just afraid of, like, what if everybody dies and I'm all alone? Because I already felt as alone as I'd felt, maybe not ever, because there were some pretty isolated times when I was having health problems as a kid, but it was definitely up there, and I was just so terrified. But you see, leaning into that anxiety didn't help to alleviate it. It just made it worse. And these days, I'm slowly gaining a better and better understanding that the only way to alleviate anxiety is to take action. And there's always going to be uncertainty. There are always going to be a massive, massive number of variables that are completely outside the scope of my influence, let alone the scope of my control, of which every day that I live, I realize more and more that I have very little actual control. Just in the sense of the world is a really big place and a really tiny place all at the same time. The more we zoom out, the more strange and yet serendipitously beautiful it all becomes. But that's beside the point right now. That's another video. Anyway, finding the space where my agency can exist is the only way that I found to really address the anxiety. Because for the smaller day-to-day minutia that I was describing before, but part of it is just that the anxiety is silly. It's like, okay, I don't really need to spend that much time worried about this. If this happens, like if I got a speeding ticket on that red light, that I cut it just a little bit close, which, like, I'm a pretty cautious driver, so like me gotta get close. It's like I cleared the intersection before it even turned red. But again, I just stress about stupid shit sometimes. But that kind of thing, like, it's easier to put away because I can zoom out and understand that it's not that consequential, right? the bigger, scarier ones are more challenging on this front. That being said, what I realize is the reason it's scary to me is because I care. Because I'm surrounded by people that I really genuinely love. Because I finally see a future for myself as a part of this world where I can really make a difference and live a life that's fulfilling for me while creating a perpetual positive impact for the people that I am able to work with and live with and grow with. And so, while that doesn't directly address the anxiety of that future being impossible, or like, here's a good example. I worry about nuclear war probably more than any person should. And it's like, on a 1-year time horizon, is there anything I can do that's going to even slightly minimize or just the tiniest decimal place of reduction of risk on the front of nuclear war? On a 1-year time horizon, not really. What about on a 10-year though? What about 40 years? If I do zoom out and give myself a little bit more space, then there's still no way that I can... I'm not delusional enough to think that I can control the future. That's just ridiculous. But maybe I can nudge the spectrum of probabilities in a little bit of a better direction. And it just takes time. It just takes time. Or rather, it takes time plus intentionally invested agency. Because just time alone, or just sitting, procrastinating, worrying, whatever, it's not improving my agency. But if I take the space where my agency can exist in the present and continuously compound that over time, then there's at least a chance that I'll have a chance to positively influence the probability space of the future. And maybe the most beautiful part of this is that even if I fail, like let's say that I work my ass off for the next year and then there is nuclear war and then we all, like, it probably wouldn't kill everyone immediately, but it would be bad. It would be very bad for a long time. And let's say that I'm just evaporated, which is probably the best case scenario for me in that situation. Well, no, I don't. I wouldn't go that far. But it certainly would be better than, like, having a guaranteed death just slowly and agonizing over the course of days. Again, beside the point. That's a separate video. But let's say that we get that situation of which I worked my ass off, gave it everything I got, and now it's too late. And that there was nothing that I could have done in hindsight to make the world a better place. Well, I would push back on even that framing, because I would say a lot of the things that I'm doing in just the ways that I'm engaging with people day to day, helping them to transform their lives, helping them to find meaning, helping them to find that sense of agency, especially with my job as it relates to their physical health. I think that does matter, at least as much as anything can. And so, in the pursuit of the bigger picture vision of change that I'm working towards, even in the absence of realizing that hope, that's my best case scenario for my day-to-day present fulfillment. So in the time that I would have between now and then, that would be the most fulfilled that my life could be. And so, rather than tethering my identity to any particular outcome, I'm doing my best to be much more focused on the process of taking the actions that I need to take to improve my skills and to find fulfillment in the present by actually helping people right now, not as a hypothetical in the future, but like actually making a difference in people's lives while becoming a better version of myself, and then continuing to compound that process as I figure out some of the ways to help our systems evolve into systems that can self-correct instead of self-destruct, right? I have no idea how to actually do that at the scale that it would be necessary to make that a reality right now. But I believe that it's possible. And step one is creating a community to not have to do it alone. But I would imagine that there's a lot of people out there who, whether it's in your personal life or just in the larger state of the world, or like me, and it's a little bit of both, or a hell of a lot of both, realizing that worrying, it's not doing us any favors. And while there are no guarantees, the best thing that we can do is give it everything we got. And then even if things still fall apart, at least we lived a much more meaningful life in the pursuit of influencing the probability landscape in a positive direction. And while I certainly didn't cover everything, that's a decent sense of the broad thesis of my life right now. And it will continue to evolve, but I think that it's directionally correct. And at least for me, and the way that I see the world and myself as I exist within it. But I'm just trying to figure things out a little bit every day. So if you made it to the end of this redundant, rambly video, well, I love you. Maybe you understand me just a little bit better now. And I will continue to use Learning Every Moment to explore some of the things that I'm working through and some of the ways that I'm trying to navigate life in the 21st century, which is strange for better and worse. But I also believe that it can be beautiful, and I wouldn't trade my life. I just want to make the most of it, and I hope that you do too. My action item for you today. Think about the one thing that creates the most anxiety in your life, and think about the potential action steps that you could take to mitigate that. So maybe you just need to zoom out a little bit. Maybe there are things that you need to start doing or to stop doing that would give you some sense of agency and also reduce the cause of the anxiety. Maybe you need to expand your time horizons. I don't know. I'm not you. I haven't lived your life and I won't pretend. Maybe it's something where there's literally nothing that you can do. And if that's the case, maybe the best thing to do is to find the most meaningful place that you can take some action and take it. Well, there are plenty of more words in my mouth, but I think this is a perfectly good place to land. As good as any. I love you tons. Have a great day.